Oh, hello, Charlotte. Hello, everyone. Mana here. And today I'm joined by a business transformation pro. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Charlotte Allen, I've been so impressed by your direct, no nonsense approach to business transformation, to how you help your clients, to how you talk to us. During our first conversation, I was like, this is music to my ears. Who has time to beat about the bush? So in the spirit of that, let's dive into today's topic. I see a lot of businesses, in particular in the B2B space, struggle with digital transformation. And typically they have a traditional sales model, which is based more on face to face in person communication, and digital has been a challenge for them and they're hurting. So let's help them out. So I have two questions for you today.
Yep.
One is three tips, critical things that will help people, businesses with their digital transformation projects. And if my boss is resistant, what do I do? How do I convince them? So, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mana. I'm so excited to be here and talk to your listeners. So, in the spirit of just being direct, let me talk about the three things that are important. I work across different industries, but I am very current in a digital transformation project with a client. So, I will tell you the three things that we are focusing on to make sure that that is successful, because we don't want to be in the 75% failure rate, because as we know, change still does not succeed. So, number one, you need to remember your people will succeed or fail your project. So it's not about your spreadsheets. It's not about your flow diagrams. It's not about any of the stuff. You have got to be people centered in this digital transformation. And I know a lot of us get very excited about how wonderful it'll be and how we're transforming and how we're moving on. And we get really fast. So we sprint, right? We sprint. We want to move it fast. We want to make sure it happens now. So my second point is find a balance. We all know sprinters get gassed out, right? Sprinters are going to, get to the point where they need recovery. You have got to find a balance between the tortoise and the hare or the sprint and the marathon. Digital transformation is truly transformational, but make sure you give yourself enough time to do that recovery. The last one is probably the most important one. It is have a user focus. So again, we get so focused on the technology. It's so cool. It's going to do so much amazing things. People can do all this stuff. And we totally forget who is the customer, the consumer, the user. That is the person. And you really need to think about it as a person. You need to put a picture up on your wall of a real life human being with characteristics that you define. And that is your focus. You have got to focus on the user. You cannot stick your head in your spreadsheets. You cannot get yourself in your Gantt charts. It has got to be a focus on a human being. And those are my top three. And we can talk about anything you want to talk about within those, but those are my top three suggestions on how to make digital transformation successful. And then the question about what is your boss? What do you need to do for your boss? And oftentimes the expression that I've used is you need to feed your boss. Do you know if you're upset and you're hungry, we have that phrase that we all call hangry. You need to feed your boss. Your boss needs to be fed. When your boss is fed, and we all know this, when we're fed, we're happy, we're satiated, we'll receive a lot of information. So feed your boss the kind of food your boss needs and wants and likes. So if your boss likes donuts, you bring your boss donuts. If he likes lattes or he or she likes lattes, bring lattes, right? So think about where your boss is and think about what they need to be fed. And I would suggest that you think about it also from the perspective of the people, because your boss may be thinking about it from the perspective of the user, the customer, the client, right? And he or she may also be thinking about it from the perspective of, I've got these business goals. So if you are presenting your suggestion or your idea, which is going to be truly amazing, right? Then present it in such a way that your boss is fed and that you are able to structure that conversation in such a way that you're touching on what they need from you. So
Yeah.
there you
And
have it.
and you make a great point there. And we did this with targeting in the B2B space a lot. When we look at the needs of our target audiences, whether it's a boss and whether it's a potential customer, they have a set of needs. We typically look at I'm selling this widget and do they need this widget? No, people are full human beings. They had sets of needs that go beyond just that widget or just that job. They may feel a lot of pressure from their bosses. They may not tell you about it. They may be under pressure. They may want that raise. They may want better work-life balance.
Yeah,
And it's really important to understand that we're dealing with a whole human being, and that human being needs to be fed, and we need to understand the needs so that we can feed them.
absolutely.
And going back to the previous question that I had, can you tell us again about your number two critical thing and dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah. The number two was the balance, right?
Yes.
Right. So what I see and hear from a lot of technical transformation folks, right? So again, I work across a variety of STEM industry categories. So when we're doing something around technical transformation, the people who are experts in that, they get really excited, right? They want to make it happen now, right? They want to have the money for it. They know they can push it through, right? Because for them, it's a simple couple of changes within their software sometimes. And no matter what the speed is for the project as a totality, it's not fast enough for them, right? So they want to sprint, right? Because they see and understand the vision. The challenge becomes is that everyone else doesn't see the vision yet. And oftentimes they skip that step. So either they're skipping the step and they're not sharing the vision, or they don't understand. I had this conversation a week or so ago. They don't understand that their organization isn't yet ready, right? Because you need to not only do the digital transformation, but then there's organizational change that organization needs to be ready for associated with the technology. So it kind of begs to find that balance, figure out not only the digital piece of it, but figure out the organizational people piece of it, because literally, as the expert, the digital piece will work, right? That's your expertise. The piece that often, again, is skipped in this is what about the people, right? How do you balance the fact that you want to go fast with the fact that people need more? They need the vision. They need you to bring them along. They need you to teach them new skills, literally new skills. They are in a position potentially to be, call center, to be frontline, to be the people to solve the problems. And if they don't even know how to do that, they're going to be in a position to not do their job well, right? Because they haven't been set up for that. So I would say it's about the balance between the two.
We have a chart, a marketing transformation model chart. And whenever I show it to people, they are shocked at how many layers there are to it that have nothing to do with marketing.
Yes.
There's a change management, people change management component. There may be a legal component.
Yeah.
There's an oversight component. Somebody needs to be the leader overseeing this entire project. And oftentimes it cannot be a marketing person because this leader has to oversee the change happening across departments,
Right.
across areas. It is very complex. And so to your point, it may take a couple of years
Yes.
and it never ends.
Right.
And that's the other thing that companies need to realize is that your digital transformation needs to continue, and to do it really well, it may take a couple of years. I see so many companies start the process. They don't fully go through the entire process and then they say, well, we paid for all these systems and nobody's using them and nobody knows how to use them. And then they start the process all over again, but again, with a system in mind, without realizing that the system actually was not the problem.
Yes.
So thank you for diving more into that particular one because I think it's really so important and it's tied to people. And I feel like
Hmm.
every part of this conversation, it just goes back to the people. I love that you called it the people because I use that term
People.
all the time. I always say, give the people what they want.
Yes.
So, so thank you for joining me today and giving the people what they need.
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I would just say that it always fascinates me that we have been talking about change, I feel like since the beginning of time, right? And we still are in a place across many industries where it fails, right? So to your point, it really wasn't the system, it was that we forgot the people part of it. So when people ask me, is there one way? What's the secret? How do I make it work? It is completely centered around the people, right? And making sure those people have what they need. It takes some skill. It is not something that is scripted. So each organization, I feel as though, needs a slightly sort of tailored solution for them. But I don't believe that we need to live with this 75% failure rate. I believe that we can do this really well as long as we understand what we need to put in place. So that's kind of where I am with change. It can happen and it should not be this horrible failure rate.
Yeah. And I forgot another key component, which is hiring people like you, because I am a marketing person. I am not a change expert.
Right.
And so I'm a change expert when it comes to marketing evolution, so marketing strategy and so on. This goes beyond that. Whether it's a corporate digital transformation project that has to do with a lot more than just marketing and sales
Hmm.
or not, I think we need to have change experts on board and business experts on board who can manage the process and keep that focus on people. And I think that's consistently a missing key component because again, that focus on the systems, on the tools,
Right.
and not wanting to spend a lot of money on it. But would you rather actually bring on the right people and get it done right than run into that failure rate bucket or into the trap that I've seen where, 6 months down the road, you have a system that you're not using, but you're locked in a 1 2 year contract with them and throwing thousands of dollars out the window.
Even worse, your entire organization is completely ignoring what you just did and making workarounds at every single level to go back to the way it was, right? That they're comfortable with. So I think you bring up a good point. There aren't that many people who really like change, right? As human beings and as organizations, we just don't like it, right? We are resistant to it. We like to be comfortable. For Rebel Successful Leaders, I talk a lot about how do we bring our uniqueness on board, right? So we talk about change. Change is bringing something different forward, right? Change is not about doing the same thing. So how do we bring uniqueness forward and how do we make sure that we're successful doing it? So you're completely right. I am one of those anomaly folks who loves change. I think I've had a ton of experiences. We're together on that one, right? I've had a ton of experiences helping organizations with silos and how to bring that forward. I've helped organizations work better with other organizations. I often sit in the middle and help with the translation or the connection point. But it's really about how do we go forward and do something new, right? How do we have those champions within our organization for the change? And you're right. People say, I don't know if I could afford that in my budget, but they're with a 75% failure rate and having to spend money to do it 2 or 3 times. Can you believe it? It's
No.
just,
Yeah.
you want to ask yourself
Not
exactly what's
me
going on.
with that failure rate.
Yeah.
You don't have to be part of that statistic.
Yeah.
I have one more question now. You've inspired
Right.
me because now that we found out that we both love change, I have to qualify. I'm not gonna say I love change. I'm really good with change.
Okay.
And I do seek it often. I'm not as uncomfortable with change as most people.
Mhm.
But that's probably because of how I see change. So I wanted to ask you, what is change to you?
Yeah, change to me is so I think about times in my career or my life when things have been comfortable, when things have been the same, right? When things have been not very different. And what strikes me about that time is that, you kind of sit back, you kind of get to do some other things. But at the end of the day, what you are not doing is you're not growing, right? You're not learning anything new. You are not reaching out kind of like a sponge to like figure out what your next step is. You're not evolving, right? So for me, you are correct. Too much change is exhausting, right? So I often advocate for a recovery period post a change because we all need to kind of sort of recover. We need to kind of put things in place. We need to figure out what the new is, right? Because we can't just kind of constantly go forward and never stop and sit. But we for me, change is about it's about growth, it's about evolution. It's literally about demonstrating more and more about your unique offering on the planet, right? You pick your word, purpose, guidance, reason to be, you guys fill in the blank, but it is the thing that makes you the most satisfied with what you're doing. And we were never created to sit and do nothing. We were always created to evolve and change. So you have to kind of figure out how to make that work and how much of it is good for you. And oftentimes, how much can you advocate for versus what is sort of handed to you? Because nobody likes that, right?
For me, change is exploration,
Hmm.
and it's a way of living instead of just being.
Yeah.
I think that because I was born in Romania and then
Hmm.
I moved to Bulgaria when I was 19. I just barely turned 19. Then I moved to the US and I was kind of innocent, not realizing how expensive it was going to be to figure
Yeah.
it out. I think maybe because I went through so much change and very difficult change, change became something else to me than the standard definition,
Yes.
especially in the business sense. It became evolution, exploration. I'm definitely an explorer. Like even when I go travel, I just want to like
Mhm.
explore everything.
Yes.
I'm not the sit on the beach type of person. So I think my definition of change is very personal to my life experience. And I would love to encourage people to explore what change means to them.
Hmm.
And could there possibly be another definition that's very personal to you that will make it easier for you to go through change?
Right.
So again, we're going back to this people element. If we want to encourage and motivate our teams to join us in this change that we're trying to implement, it's worth taking the time to really get to know what change means to them and how to make it easier for them. Because I think for a lot of us, when we make that shift to understand what make it what to us personally and what our own barriers to it, our
Yes.
own where we get obstructed by our own self, when we start understanding those things, change becomes so much easier. And then to your point, and then understanding when, oh, this it's time for me to take a break. It's time for me to settle in before I make more change happen.
Yep.
I think that pacing yourself is truly, you made a great point, is truly very important.
Hmm. And I liked what you said about it. People call that mindset. I don't really call it mindset. I like to call it head talk because, quite honestly, head talk makes us recognize that we have control over it. We can say something different to ourselves and we can actually advocate for and lead our head talk, right? So if we say to ourselves, this is going to be this way and this is why I want it and this is how I'm going to explore it and this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to go figure it out, it's all very different than if we say something else to ourselves, right? So absolutely, absolutely get there.
This is so exciting. I'm loving this so much.
Yeah.
I feel like we are giving the people a lot to think about. And I wanted to make sure that I give you time to talk a little about what you do at your business, how you help
Okay.
companies, and where they can find you. Let's make
Okay.
sure that we tell people how to find you.
Well, let's do the where to find me first. Rebelsuccessforleaders.com is my website. There's a lot of stuff there you can look at. Join my newsletter. I'd love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm Charlotte Allen, food innovator there. And if you would just put a little note in the connection request that you saw me on Mana Show, then I can track kind of what what sort of spurned that connection. What I do for folks, yeah, is that I help folks primarily in the STEM fields, and I focus mainly around innovation, change, or leadership. And there is a lot of common threads and cross connection there. But the work that I do is really about rebel, which is the uniqueness, the unconventional, the thing that only you can bring. How do we get that voice heard in a very diverse setting? So everybody talks about, I want diversity, I want innovation, I've got to have all these opinions. And that's great. We put people in a room often, right? Or on a call now, right? We put people together and we love the diversity, but then we don't really know what to do with it, right? We at some point very quickly get to, I have to make a timeline. I need to get everybody aligned. Everybody needs to toe the line. All need to sort of march like a bunch of robots after the lead robot, right? So what we're doing then is we say, we're done with it. We're done with innovation. We're done with diversity. It was only for a little bit and we're finished. So I help people understand that that is not something that should just be closed. It is something we should continue and we just guide it a little differently. We have this amazing diversity. People leave because we shut it down. People leave because we stamp our big boot on top of their diversity and they say, you don't want me, right? And so if we want to keep it, we have to figure out how to nurture that and how to guide it within the context of certainly every business wants to be successful. That does not change, right? So that's what I help folks do.
Wise words, wise words. They should be lucky to work with you. So
Yeah, it'd be fun.
reach out, and even Charlotte is a connector. So reach out and have a chat.
Absolutely.
And you know
Love
where
to
you
go.
can find me at Manamika pretty much anywhere online except TikTok. And here I primarily stream live on LinkedIn and I'm on YouTube at Manamika as well. And as always, I will see you back here next time.
Bye.